Thank you, Norman. I'm Montague, and I became involved with the Life Raft group in 2002. Unfortunately, my son Jonathan succumbed to the disease, Pediatric GIST, at the age of 23 early that year. And I became involved a little later in, with my emphasis being on Pediatric GIST, and joined the board 2 years ago. And I just want to say that any work that I do is in his memory. And by the way, that you have your Chicago flag. We Jersey people have a little sign, you can't see it, it says, "We're from Jersey." You got a problem with that? About a little over a year ago, Norman was telling me about the clinic that the NIH was going to try to get together for the pediatric GIST patients. And then we met in Seattle in November. And on the way to the airport, excuse me, Norman's had the microphone for a long time, it's going to take a couple minutes to tell you a story. I left my sport coat in the car, and I was hosting this meeting, and I'm thinking, well, I'm with these, really top-notch docs and stuff from around the country, and here I am without a sport coat. So somebody had a Macy's certificate that they gave out at the hotel, and they gave it to me, and our meeting was, I think, at 10:30. And I ran down there, but the store wasn't open until 10. I ran in and I said, "I'm a 42 regular, that looks good." I put a blue sport coat on, and I usually only wear blue because about 20 years ago, a woman told me I look good in blue all the time. So I got a blue sport coat, I sit down, and they have my picture on the screen to introduce me, and I have a blue shirt, a blue sport coat on. So when I started the meeting, I said, "I think that's the same blue shirt as in the picture, but I guarantee you it's not the same sport coat because I got this 5 minutes ago." So I have that shirt and that sport coat on tonight, just in memory of that meeting. We sat at that meeting and we were kicking around the ideas and of how this could go about. And Dr. Helman at the time said, whoa, wait a minute. This is going to happen. Don't worry about it. We'll get over these hurdles. This is going to happen. And Jerry and I were talking this morning, and in business, an endeavor this large would never have a meeting in November and be done in June of the next year. But in June 18th of this year, there were 14 GIST patients that were treated at the NIH clinic in Washington, D.C., and I think that's fantastic. In your program is a little bio of Dr. Lee Helman, and I'll just cut to what he's doing now. It says, in 2005, Dr. Helman was named Acting Scientific Director for Clinical Science, Center for Cancer Research, National Cancer Institute. And currently, Dr. Helman's labs are investigating the role of growth factors and the mechanisms of metastases for pediatric sarcomas. That was a mouthful. But what I think they've done is they've done something that's never been done before, where they took these patients in on a short notice and are providing free service for them, and I think it's fantastic, and it's the beginning of something wonderful. In 2005, we had some of these pediatric GIST patients in New York City. There were some pictures of it tonight, and it was the first time they had gotten together, and they had a ball, and they started to meet other kids that have this disease and are fighting an especially tough battle. As most of you know, the pediatric GIST is a little bit tougher to figure out. And Dr. Helman was sitting there tonight, and I heard him saying that, all the problems that we have getting a cure, he said, believe me, every single person that is working there thinks of nothing else every day but saving these kids' lives. And for that, Dr. Lee Helman, you're not only a new good friend of mine, but you are the Life Raft Group Humanitarian of the Year.
First, I am almost embarrassed to receive this award, and obviously the people that have received it before me are some of my heroes. But one of the things is that strikes me is that I chose my profession, and most of you in this room didn't choose to struggle struggle with GIST, so I'm doing what I chose to do, and you had just thrust it upon me. But I want to go back just to how this happened, because it was 2 years ago in ASCO, the American Society of Clinical Oncology, in 2007, there was a session on pediatric tumors that occur in adults. And Alberto Papo was there, Norm was there, because one of the tumors we were talking about was GIST in children. And that got us to thinking, we sort of realized that each of us had seen 1, 2 patients, but that if we were going to really begin to make progress, we had to get all the patients together so that we could compare notes, because clearly this was a different disease than the adult GIST. It wasn't responding to Gleevec. And so really at that meeting, with Norm sitting between us, you saw a picture of Alberto and Norm and I, we sort of hatched this idea that what better place to bring a really rare group of patients, but to the National Institutes of Health, really our nation's hospital. And we then, at that meeting, I decided this was going to happen. And then when we met at CTOS in Seattle, that sealed the deal. And a lot of people worked really hard to make that happen. We brought in physicians from Boston, from Houston, from New York. And I had no idea, we just kept moving forward. We had no idea, would we see 5 patients or anyone sign up? Fortunately, in no small measure, because of Raft and their connection to this community, I think within 12 hours we had 16 patients signed up to be in our clinic, and that was all we could handle. So we had to stop in 12 hours. It was a remarkable 2 days. I think any of you that have done something where you just know it was the right thing to do, well, that was what happened when we saw all these kids together. The first night they came to the Children's Inn, we had a little dinner for them. And I remember seeing Norm just sort of walking around to the side, and I could see his joy. He didn't want to be up there, he just realized that this was the right thing to do. And what's happened since then is we're just about ready to open our first national clinical study focused on pediatric GIST patients and also adult patients with what we call wild-type GIST, using a new investigational agent that has never been tried in GIST before. We have a drug company committed to support that study. So I will pledge that we will have that study open within the next 6 months. We're very excited about it. And I can just say for myself, it just gives me tremendous pleasure to know that I can in some small way try to move this field forward. And the reason I got here late is that we had a meeting with a group called Faster Cures, which is a group that's trying to make cures occur faster. And I can just tell you that one of the things in academic medicine, we all have our successes and we hang our academic credentials on our walls, and you publish a paper, you feel good, you start to feel like you've accomplished something. But I can assure you, as a pediatric oncologist, you know, there isn't a day that goes by that when I have to meet with a 12-year-old child and their family and say to them, the treatment I tried has failed you, that I realize we haven't done anything. And so we won't rest, we will continue to push, and we will continue to try to use the NIH as a gathering point. We're committed to having these clinics on an ongoing basis. And with the help of groups like the Raft, this is really the start, we hope. And we hope to see the same results in our children with GIST that we currently are having in our adults. So I'm truly humbled